Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. I'm going to read a few articles for you guys, and I'm going to get to the point of this video. Well, the funny thing is that you probably already know what the point of this video is, just by the title of it. So if I give it away at the title, bear with me, but take a look at a few of these articles that I'm going to read. And there's one article that is pretty lengthy, but I'm going to get through about 70% of it, and then you'll get the rift. And I'll tell you why I'm only going to do about 70% of that one article. But this is the first one here, and I'll go through this one pretty quick. This banking scandal is awful, even for Wells Fargo. And then it says here, I guess none of this should surprise me anymore. Yeah, and it's true with Wells Fargo's record. Okay, and it says, our old friends at Wells Fargo are involved in yet another banking scandal, and this one is really bad. People wrongfully lost their homes and ended up on the street. But before I get into the details of this particularly atrocious mishap, let's have a quick recap of Wells Fargo's greatest hits. Back in April, Wells Fargo was hit with a $1 billion fine for selling 570,000 clients auto insurance they didn't need, and also charging mortgage borrowers erroneous fees. By the bank's own estimates, as many as 20,000 of those clients may have had their cars repossessed as a result of their inability to pay for the insurance Wells Fargo illegally stuck them with. On the topic of repossessing vehicles, last November, the bank came under fire for illegally repossessing vehicles owned by members of the military. Then in October, Wells Fargo got grilled by federal regulators after recommending investment products that were highly likely to lose value. The bank also pushed tons of customers into higher fee retirement accounts that were bad for customers but more lucrative for the bank. The same month, the bank fessed up to erroneously charging late fees to more than 100,000 borrowers, even though the delays were the bank's faults. In 2016, employees at some Wells Fargo's California branches got busted for selling sensitive customer information, like social security numbers, to identity thieves. And in late 2016 through 17, Wells Fargo had its notorious fake account scandal, where its employees opened extra accounts for millions of customers so they could hit their sales goal and earn a bonus. And then there's the time Wells Fargo froze my account for sending a simple wire transfer. I don't know what else to say about Wells Fargo and basically every other big bank any more than I'm outraged with their behavior. Consider Wells Fargo's latest scandal. This week, the bank said a computer glitch caused 545 of its customers to lose their home. The glitch, according to papers the bank filed with the Securities Exchange Commission, caused the bank to incorrectly deny 870 loan modifications, around 60% of which went into foreclosure. Basically, people asked the bank to change their mortgage to make it more affordable, and requests that should have been approved weren't, with the process taking months before the borrowers got the final no. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry you lost your house, your family, and your job. Our bad. Computer glitch. You know? I mean, you know how it goes. Really sorry. And then this here goes on to tell a story about how a guy lost his house in one of these computer glitches, and losing his house ended up, I guess his wife ended up leaving him. He ended up being homeless and ended up living in a friend's basement with his son. And after everything was said and done, Wells Fargo sent him a check for $25,000, pretty much after he'd pretty much lost everything. And they sent him a letter later on saying, we're really sorry for our mistake. So this is the first article I wanted to go over. And my question to you all is has anyone in Wells Fargo gone to jail? No one. For all of these misdeeds that they knowingly do, no one's gone to jail. Okay? Let's take a look at this one. More than 2 years after this is a pretty old article, actually. It's like 10 years old, but it's relevant, okay? More than 2 years after residents of FEMA trailers deployed along the Mississippi Gulf Coast began complaining of breathing difficulties, nosebleeds, and persistent headaches, U.S. health officials announced Thursday that long-awaited government tests found potentially hazardous levels of toxic formaldehyde gas in both travel trailers and mobile homes provided by the agency. Okay, so let me go, and the levels of the gases that they found in those homes were anywhere between 10 to 40 times higher than what is recommended. All right, 10 to 40 times higher. Okay, 38,000 families still in FEMA units. He estimated that approximately 38,000 families, or roughly 114,000 individuals, are currently living in FEMA-provided travel trailers or mobile homes along the Gulf Coast, down from a high of about 144,000 families. So, did anyone go to jail for this? I remember this, actually. I remember reading about this. I don't even think anyone got fired or got demoted or got penalized or went to jail or anything like that for this atrocity right here. Okay, so pretty much what they did with these trailers is they took your and my tax dollars. All right, they placed a bid out, so the cheapest bidder that made these junk trailers, and then they took these trailers and they put families in them and pretty much poisoned these families that were living in there, families that really didn't have anywhere else to go. Okay, but did anyone go to jail? If anyone did, please leave it in the comments. Say, yeah, so and so went to jail for this. But you know how many people have been injured because of these things? I actually saw a documentary on this a few months back, sometime this year in 2018, of all the people that had like long-lasting health problems because of these trailers. All right, so they're supposed to be there to help them, but in all actuality, not only did they not help them, but they injured them long term. On top of these people losing their homes to the disaster, they got their health injured long term, all right, because of this. But no one was pretty much held responsible for this. I don't ever remember hearing anyone going to jail or anything like that for this kind of stuff right here. Okay, and like I said, if anyone did go to jail because of this, any of these people that work in FEMA or in the government, if somebody did go to jail and you guys know about it, leave it in the comments. I would love to hear your guys' comments on this. But here's my point: nobody goes to jail. Okay, government agency, nobody goes to jail. Okay, this is a bank. All right, who owns the government? The banks do. All right. This bank in particular has gotten away with so much stuff. All they do is pay fines. So they steal. I'm going to make numbers up, but this is how it works. They steal $100 billion from the American people, all right, through these guys' programs that are really all they're doing is just stealing from people, okay, knowingly. They knowingly steal $100 billion or so, whatever the number is, I'm just making up that number, from the American people, and then they get fined. Oh, so they're going to get fined $1 billion, or they're going to get fined $500 million for this. You know what that is? You know what those fines are, ladies and gentlemen? That's the cost of doing business for them. And the reason it's the cost of doing business for them is because they know they're going to get away with it without any criminal indictments. They know that if they steal $100 billion from the American people, that they're only going to have to pay X number of dollars in fines. And as long as that number is less than what they're stealing from the people, they're okay with it because they know no one's going to go to jail. They'll go ahead and they'll fire their lemmings that are making 15, 16 bucks an hour. But all of these people, the ones that really make the big bucks at the top, all of those people, none of them ever go to jail. Okay? And I consider these big banks, I consider them a government agency, because the big banks, they're all connected to the Federal Reserve. And as you all know, the Federal Reserve pretty much owns this country. Okay, so that was the second article. This one here might be a little bit long, but I think you guys will find it pretty interesting. Okay, 10 people who exposed are really, you got. I'll leave this URL. I'll leave this link so you guys can go and take a look at it. Okay, so number 10, Gary Webb, the Dark Alliance. In 1996, Gary Webb, a writer for the San Jose Mercury News, published a series of articles known as Dark Alliance. The articles detail how the CIA turned a blind eye as Nicaraguan drug traffickers sold and distributed crack cocaine in Los Angeles throughout the 80s. It also described how the Reagan administration protected drug dealers from prosecution. And ladies and gentlemen, these are public record, okay? So it's not like somebody's just making this up, okay? According to Webb, the CIA allowed the traffickers to ship large amounts of drugs into the country because the profits were being used to fund the Reagan-supported Contras, a rebel group opposing the socialist Sandinista government in Nicaragua. Naturally, insinuating the crack cocaine epidemic of the 80s was partially caused by government was a controversial stance, especially when the Reagan administration was already tainted by the Iran-Contra affair. Because of this, Webb's articles were initially viewed with contempt by the government and his fellow journalists. Speaking out caused him to lose his position at San Jose Mercury News, and he was never able to find a job writing daily news again. In 2004, he was found dead with 2 gunshots to the back of his head. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It was considered a suicide. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Watergate. A lot of people know about this. Arguably the most famous whistleblower in U.S. history, FBI agent Mark Felt was responsible for feeding sensitive details about the Watergate scandals to the Washington Post reporter Bob Woodward, which ultimately led to the resignation of President Richard Nixon. Felt was an anonymous source who went by the nickname Deep Throat, and he didn't reveal himself as the informant until 2005, officially ending a public 30-year guessing game. As most folks know, Felt told Woodward about the Nixon administration's illegal attempts to spy on political opponents at the Watergate Hotel, as well as a widespread spying and sabotage ring meant to help Nixon win re-election. Felt also believed he was passed over as director of the FBI because Nixon wanted a man in charge who was easier to control. Let's see, there were many players involved in uncovering Watergate, and Woodward and his partner Carl Bernstein later admitted they were surprised people became so captivated by Deep Throat. He mostly just confirmed information they've gotten from other sources. Nevertheless, receiving confirmation from the second in command at the FBI was just what they needed to legitimize their story. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but did anyone go to jail because of this? I don't remember. So someone might have, because it was such a widespread story at the time, but I don't remember. The next one, Daniel Ellsberg, the Pentagon Papers. In 1971, Ellsberg disclosed the Pentagon Papers and confirmed that many U.S. citizens had suspected for decades. The government lied about its actions and involvement in the Vietnam War through 4 consecutive presidential administrations. It's what I tell you, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't matter who's sitting in the seat. It doesn't matter who's in the White House, all right? It's all the same party. It's all the same team, okay? I mean, I can understand that some administrations slow the train down more than others, but the train is still on the track and it's still heading towards that brick wall, all right? So I consider this administration that's in the White House now as one of those administrations that slows the train down. The train is still heading towards the wall, but now it's going at a slower speed, all right? Some administrations, the train is just going at really fast speeds towards the wall. This administration is still going to hit that wall eventually. It's just going at a slower speed. That's the best way I can put it. Secretary of Defense McNamara originally commissioned the papers in '67 in an effort to create a history of the Vietnam War and a sort of what not to do account for future administrations. However, as the research grew more extensive, those involved realized the government had repeatedly lied to its people. Ellsberg, a military analyst, worked on the study and became fed up with the dishonesty and seemingly endless war. So Ellsberg leaked the top secret papers to the New York Times, which published a series of articles on the report's shocking findings. Some of the worst evidence found in the papers was the administration had strong intelligence that Vietnam was a war they could not win, but they joined anyways. The U.S. had no real interest in helping South Korea and entered the war only for political maneuvers. Leaving the war before a pro-American government was installed was never considered. The John F. Kennedy administration had plans to overthrow South Vietnam leader Ngo Dinh Diem. On the campaign trail, President Johnson promised to scale back the war even though he had specific plans to bomb North Korea. The U.S. expanded the war and conducted bombings and raids without informing the American people. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, those were bombs that we paid for. Well, I wasn't alive then, but you know what I mean. That the U.S. citizens paid for. Those are bombs that the U.S. citizens paid for, and the government was dropping them on other people in other countries and lying to us about it. Okay, next one. A trailblazer. How did Thomas Drake, a former senior executive at the NSA, end up working retail at an Apple store? By doing such dastardly things as trying to protect the Fourth Amendment and eliminate wasteful spending. Yes, a man who was once privy to the nation's greatest secrets and technological strategies found himself showing people how to use the latest apps on their iPhone. In reality, the gig at the Apple store was likely a relief for Drake, considering he was once being prosecuted under the Espionage Act and facing 35 years in prison. He came into the government's crosshairs after disclosing unclassified information about Trailblazer, a $1.2 billion NSA program that infringed on people's right to privacy. So here you go. They're spending $1.2 billion, all right, of our taxpayer monies to infringe on our privacy. So it's like I've said in the past also, ladies and gentlemen, is that we, the citizens of this country, we pay for our own enslavement. All right, it's our wealth that is being used to control us. All right, the government initially designed Trailblazer as a method of sifting through the increasing amounts of electronic communications created by the internet, cell phones, and elsewhere. Excuse me. While having a program to fill such a need is understandable, there was an alternative program known as ThinThread that was more efficient, only cost $3 million, and didn't violate the privacy of our ordinary citizens. Although Drake continually advocated using ThinThread, the bloated and unlawful Trailblazer system was adopted instead. So here you go. There's something that could have been done more efficiently to get the results that the NSA needed, all right, in order to secure our nation, all right, against outside hostile forces. They could have done it for $3 million, but instead they decided to go with the $1.2 billion option that gathered everyone's information instead of the information that they needed to gather in order to protect our nation. All right. Let's go to the next one. I like this one. The U.S. government's cozy relationship with the oilfield services company Halliburton was frequently roused suspicion, or has frequently roused suspicion. Things looked even worse in 2003 when Bunny Greenhouse, the chief contracting officer at the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, came forward saying the government showed favoritism to Halliburton and granted them a contract to rebuild the oil field facilities in Iraq. So what was the problem with the contract? It was a no-bid arrangement, which means no other company had the opportunity to offer a price for the work. The Halliburton subsidiary Kellogg, Brown and Root, KBR, was simply pushed through the usual cumbersome bureaucratic channels with no competition and given a $7 billion 5-year contract. It was Greenhouse's job to monitor and approve such contracts, and she argued through the whole process that the arrangement was unjust. How was she rewarded for doing her job and trying to save the U.S. money? She received poor performance reviews, demoted, and stripped of her top-secret clearance. After feeling discouraged and increasingly harassed, Greenhouse went public with the information while also revealing that Halliburton frequently overcharged the Pentagon and Don Rumsfeld's office controlled all aspects of the shady arrangement. All right. Greenhill eventually filed a lawsuit against the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for her treatment. In 2011, her employers settled a case for $970,000, which reflected full restitution for lost wages and compensatory damages and attorney's fees. And just in case some of you all don't know, Halliburton is the company that Dick Cheney was the CEO of before he became vice president. How convenient. Another one here, this one is called Colleen Rowley. Immediately after September 11th, the September 11th tragedy, Americans were dumbfounded and wondering how a primitive group of terrorists could unleash an attack on U.S. soil without drawing suspicion from any of the country's intelligence agencies. It seemed impossible, and it was. While government agencies feigned utter surprise, FBI Specialist Agent Colleen Rowley immediately came forward explaining that her Minneapolis field office knew Zacarias Mauzawi, one of the 9/11 conspirators. He paid $8,000 in cash for Boeing 747 flying lessons and was planning a suicide hijacking. However, her requests to search Mauzawi's room and computer were denied by her supervisors or by her superiors. Frustrated by the mishandling of information before and after the attacks, Rowley wrote a 13-page memorandum and hand-delivered copies to the FBI Director Robert Mueller and 2 members of the state. You notice how these names, they pop up all the time. You know, throughout history, they pop up all the time. And 2 members of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Among other things, the letter claims the Bureau deliberately thwarted efforts which may have stopped the September 11 tragedy. Time magazine printed full details of the memo in its June 3, 2002 edition titled The Bombshell Memo. Rowley also testified in front of the 9/11 Commission about the debacle and wasn't shy in saying the deadly attacks could have been delayed or completely avoided if her office had been allowed to properly investigate the suspected terrorists. Rowley retired from the FBI in 2004 and was named one of Time's Persons of the Year in 2002. All right, this is the last one that I'm going to cover. Bradley Manning, United States Army. Okay, you guys all know about Manning with the WikiLeaks, right? Okay, so Manning was a known disgruntled and often bullied worker. There is some debate regarding his intentions for the leak. Was he really trying to inform the public about crimes, brutality, and corruption within the government, or was he simply seeking revenge on his men? It doesn't matter. You see, it doesn't matter why he did it, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't matter why he did it. What matters is what he leaked to the public, true or false. Okay, and unfortunately, what he leaked to the public is true. Okay. Okay, among the things Manning revealed were a secret video nicknamed Collateral Murder that showed U.S. aircrew laughing after killing dozens of people, including reporters and civilians, in an airstrike. The second one, detailed records of how the civilian death toll in Iraq, even though the military repeatedly said there was no record, out of 109,000 deaths logged in a 6-year period, 66,000 were unarmed civilians. Third one, U.S. soldiers committed horrific acts of torture on Iraqi prisoners, and despite hundreds of field complaints, authorities never investigated. Last one, U.S. defense contractor Dynacore was involved in child trafficking. All right. So what's the point of me reading all of these articles to you, ladies and gentlemen? So this is the point. If you think that a government that does all of these things, and you know what the ironic thing is that our government is probably one of the better ones. If you take all of the countries of the world and you look at all of their governments, our government is probably one of the better ones, all right? I'm not saying it's the best because I don't know. I don't know what all the countries in the world are, and I don't know what all their governments are. But what I'm saying is it's probably one of the better ones, all right? But if you have an institution that is willing to lie to its people, that is willing to put some of its people in jail for telling the truth, that is willing to fire people and destroy their lives and destroy their careers merely because they told the truth to the American people. If you have a government that stands up for institutions that steal your money, okay, for institutions that knowingly steal your money, if you have a government that stands up for these institutions and doesn't carry out the law, all right, doesn't carry out the rule of law, and lets institutions like this throw people out on the street. If you have a government that is supposed to help its people, where, side note, I don't think a government is supposed to help its people, but since this government extorts our money, you know, they say that they take our money in order to help people, in order to run the government, to keep our nation safe. All right. But if you have a government that takes your money, buys all of these houses or trailer homes, whatever they are, and then they pretty much give them to people that were in a disaster so they can live in them, and they pretty much end up poisoning them. How in the world can you trust your government? How in the world can you trust this government to help you if a systemic crisis takes over this country and or the world? How do you expect this government, how can you trust this government to help you if a systemic crisis occurs? Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't think you're on your own as far as getting government help during a major crisis, if you think that the government is going to come in a white horse and take care of you and feed you and clothe you and house you, then you need to open your eyes. All right? You need to open your eyes, because I'm telling you one thing right now. Our government has enough food in reserves to feed every American a half loaf of bread. Okay? Our government has enough money, fiat currency that is. They have enough money in FDIC. You know that little FDIC that you see a sign off in every bank that you go into? We are a member of the FDIC, you know, that is supposed to insure your deposits. And they're not really deposits anymore, because whenever you put money in the bank, you're legally lending it to them. Okay? But the FDIC is supposed to insure whatever money you have in the bank up to $250,000, right? Do you know that that institution, that government institution, the FDIC, has enough money in reserves to bail out about 1/3 of 1% of all the people that have money in a bank? Do you know that? How is the government supposed to come and help you if we have a systemic event? And what do I mean by a systemic event? Let's say we have an economic collapse, All right, let's say we have an EMP or a coronal mass ejection where we lose the grid for weeks or months. All right. Let's say we have a huge major earthquake. You know, and that's pretty much a localized situation, but let's say it happens in several places. Let's say that we have several volcanic eruptions. I'm just trying to give you an idea of anything can happen. Anything can happen at any time. This is why you buy car insurance. All right, mainly you buy it because it's the law, even though I don't think it's a just law, but nonetheless it's a law. But if you buy a brand new car, all right, you get full coverage. Why are you getting car insurance? In case something happens. Does it mean that something is going to happen? It's 100% guaranteed that you're going to get in a car accident, or that somebody's going to vandalize your vehicle, or that your windshield is going to be taken out? No, it's not 100% guaranteed. But you purchase the insurance in case something happens, not wanting anything to happen, but just in case something happens. So why is it that so warning that something can happen, and more than likely it will happen, when it comes to our food security, when it comes to our fuel security, all right, when it comes to our grid security? Eventually something will happen. So why do you not heed the warning? You've heard it several times. If you're not a prepper and you're listening to this, why are you listening to this if you're not going to start prepping? Why are you here? Why did you click on this video if you are not thinking about prepping and doing it quickly? Just look around. Look around you and see and look at the state of our nation from every aspect. Look at it and then ask yourself, what kind of a grade would I give this nation? Right? Look at it from the socioeconomic aspect. Look at it from the economy aspect. Look at it from the political aspect. Look at it from the how divided as a nation we are aspect. Look at it how I don't want to say hated, but how disliked as a nation we are by other nations. Right? Look at it from whatever aspect you want to look at it and give it a grade. And then ask yourself, why are you not prepping? Ladies and gentlemen, that's what I've got to say. All right, so yeah, why aren't you prepping? If you're not prepping, why are you not prepping? Are you just planning on getting a pea shooter, and and when the SHTF happens, you're just gonna go around and steal other people's things? I mean, why are you not prepping? Why are you spending $4.90 at Starbucks for a drink that you can make at home for 25 cents? And why are you not prepping then? Alright, ladies and gentlemen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you got something out of this, please feel free to give the video a like. Let me go ahead and do a little bit of begging. So I got contacted by SD Bullion, and they have a spot deal going on, and the spot deal is not the greatest, all right, but it's still not bad. You can purchase a 1 ounce round, all right, SD Bullion coin, a 1 ounce round at spot. Okay. However, ladies and gentlemen, in order for you to get free shipping, you have to spend at least $99. So as far as I'm concerned, they're giving away silver right now. Even when silver is not at spot right now. I think at SD Bullion, I actually checked them out, and they do charge a very competitive premium, very competitive. All right, I don't think I've seen any other site, including Provident, which is the site that I used to go to. But with SD Bullion, their premiums are cheaper even than my the old online store that I used to go to. Okay, so if you guys are in the market for getting precious metals, I'd appreciate it if you use the link in the description. Okay, it will help to support the channel and allow me to continue to do giveaways. All right, and there is another giveaway coming up probably here in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, but I will be announcing it. I'm trying to get one of them first so that I can review them, and then I can see if I want to give that item away. It's going to be a 1 item giveaway this time around because this is a very nice item. All right, ladies and gentlemen, other ways you can support the channel, please let 1 or 2 of the ads go through when you watch one of the videos. That really helps a lot, and it only costs you a minute or 2, hopefully no more than that. And another way also is, if you are going to be doing your holiday shopping through Amazon, I'd appreciate it if you use my Amazon link on the description below as well. All right, those are all ways that you can help to support the channel, ladies and gentlemen, without having to dig into your own pockets. If you do feel like digging into your own pockets in the future, if you're ever attending one of my live premieres, where I do a live chat premiere, usually on Saturdays and Sundays, feel free to use that super chat button. Any donations are always appreciated, because whatever revenue I do earn from the sources that I told you, a lot of that goes back into the community. All right, I keep enough back to make sure that I don't have a tax bill next year. Okay, so that also, ladies and gentlemen, and I think that covers it all. Yeah, I sure do. So having said that, remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to every one of you and your families. Thank you very much to all of you new subscribers. I will definitely be shouting out those of you that I can see on next Sunday's live chat premiere. Okay, like I said, many blessings to all of you and your families. This is Alaska Prepper, and I'm out.